Good morning, guys, or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video. I'm your host, Josh Stallworth, and welcome back to another FutureFight Vanguard video, which today we will be continuing on our Silverdust Blaze set, which is V-BT08. Today we're going to be talking about the Kagero Dragonic Overlord deck. So this is a deck where the cross got reintroduced, so we're still following along our theme of G cards being released in standard. So we're going to be talking about the cross deck today. It's one of the strongest decks in the format, so I've been told, and after playing the deck, I definitely understand why. It's a very fun deck, lots of utility, lots of retire, and lots of resources and abilities to just, you know, restand, typical Overlord stuff that really makes your opponent sweat a little bit. You put them in a lot of scenarios where it's really hard for them to make a good choice on whether they want to guard or not. So we're going to get right into the video. If you guys didn't check out the updates from that are part of the Messiah video, I definitely recommend you guys go check out at least the beginning of that video for the updates that I gave you guys. Stuff like me playing Digimon in the future and, you know, contests, social media, all that kind of stuff. But we're going to get right into this video because I don't want this to be super duper long. So if you guys haven't already, be sure to subscribe down below. Click the bell button so you don't have to miss any future videos from me going forward. Be sure to check out our social medias for Cardfight Empire everything, whether that be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Twitch, which is our new combined Twitch, which is LPA Empire. So definitely check that out. All the links to those are in the description down below. Also, if you would like to become a channel member, please click the join button down below. That definitely helps keep the channel alive, and there's a lot of cool stuff that I have coming for that with the whole new revamp of both of my channels. So definitely click that if you want to support me during these times. So and I don't think I have anything else to say beyond that. But let's get right into it. So like I said, today we're going to be talking about the Kagero Overlord deck. So we can just open up our stuff right here. And so I feel like I have a pretty interesting build for this deck as opposed to other people. Of course, there's, you know, there's staples that no one really changes because they're staples. They're so good that, you know, why would you not put them in the deck, basically? But there are a few cards that I feel like I run that, you know, just throws off the, it doesn't throw off the balance of the deck, but it throws off, like, the typical idea, I feel like, of what people would expect you to put in this deck. So let's get right into it. So first we have 4 of our Dragonic Overlord, the Cross. So this is our new Ace Kagero card. For those of you who never played the G series or the Stride portion of Vanguard and you started in Standard, this will be brand new to you. For those of you who did play G series, this will not be a new card to you. You know this card, it just has, you know, a different ability because it's in Standard. So let's go over the ability. It has 3 different abilities. The first one is Vanguard Circle. Activations go once per turn. You can Soul Blast 1 card and search your deck for up to 1 card with Overlord in its card name that is different from this unit's name. Put it into your soul, shuffle your deck, and then this unit gets all of that card's card names and abilities until the end of the turn. So basically, the only other Overlord card that we run in this deck is Dragonic Overlord the End, which, if you were part of the G series, these 2 units Legion together, which means that they work together in like a super special skill kind of way, if you don't know what Legion mechanic is. And then in Standard, they kind of like made it reminiscent of that in the fact that these 2 work very well together. The second and third abilities are literally directly supporting the end skill set. So I will explain how and, you know, get into all that with you guys. But the second skill of the cross is when a card effect would count the number of cards in your hand, it is regarded as 0. So this really helps all the cards that you have in your deck that tell you if you have 4 or less cards in your hand, you can do certain things. So the end has that. Toward Cannon Dragon has that. There's also cards like Ghibli that have that here. So just a lot of cards that have that where they would count the number of cards in your hand. So definitely you can do more abilities when you're on the cross itself. It definitely sucks when you have to ride the End or even Nizar because we run that as like a tech card. But yeah, you'd always want to ride the cross. You pretty much have a really good chance to get into it because between Lava Flow Dragon and Ignirode Dragon. I basically want to call this card. You guys know what grade 2 unit I'm talking about. I can't remember the name of it, but it always goes with Kagero. Neoflame, a Dragonic Neoflame. So if they didn't print Neoflame I'm pretty sure this card would be Neoflame. However, yeah, it's pretty easy to get into the cross because you have a lot of different ways to search for it before going to grade 3. And even if you don't get to it immediately, you can always get to it later and still serve kind of the same purpose. It's just better if you get to it first. So the third ability is if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit's drive cannot become 0 or less. So again, going back to how it supports the end, how it gains the end's abilities. Usually with the end before, with the deck, you would attack the first time, have 2 drive, attack the second time, have 1 drive, and attack the third time and have 0 drive, which means that your opponent can just guard the attack as if it were a rear guard attack. Now what this new ability kind of means is that basically when this gains the end abilities, basically you'll be doing an attack with 2 drive, then an attack with 1 drive, and then an attack with 1 drive again, since its drive cannot go lower, and since it cannot become 0. So your drive has to always at least be single drive, which makes this really, really, really good. Moving on, in our grade 3 lineup, we have 4 Dragonic Overlord the End, the card that we were just talking about. So basically at the end of the battle that it attacked and it's on the Vanguard circle, you can activate one of the effects below, but you cannot activate the same effect in the same turn. So basically you can activate one effect or the other effect or both, but you can't do one of the same ability twice. So basically it has 2 different effects that you can activate. The first one is if your hand has 4 or less cards at the end of the battle that it attacked, you can Counterblast 1 and Soul Blast 1, stand this unit, and it gets -1 drive. And then the second skill is if your soul has a card with Overlord in its name, discard 3 cards at the end of the battle that it attacked, and then stand this unit, and it gets power plus 10,000 and -1 drive check. So again, you always, in my opinion, want to use the second skill first because you're gaining 10k, so your 10k can be pressuring for the last 2 attacks you have instead of just the last 1 if you choose to use the first ability first. So definitely always go with the second ability first if you are able to. Then for our tech card and our last card of the 9 grade 3 lineup, we have 1 Dragon Knight Nizar. So let me talk to you guys about this card. This card is amazing in my opinion. Like, I don't know what people say about this card because, of course, you know, I haven't really been in the loop with Vanguard like I told you guys before in the Messiah video update. But this card, in my opinion, is absolutely nuts. It's like Ogma from G Series, if you guys are familiar with that, the Shadow Paladin card. But it essentially is just like Ogma. But it, you know, like when you're playing against a Protect matchup, which is, you know, really hard generally for Force decks and Force decks and not Excel decks, but just Force decks in general. When you're playing against Protect, they usually have PGs because they're going Protect 1, and they usually have a lot of advantage and a lot of cards in hand and stuff like that. This card kind of levels the playing field, and that's why I tech it in at 1. It's really good in the Sharat matchup, and it's really good in the OTT Susano matchup as well, because they're both Protect decks that kind of have like good hand advantage, and then they also have good shield amount in their hand. So this kind of evens the playing field a little bit when you're playing against them, and it forces them into a scenario where they either A, lose their whole field and their hand while you're attacking them, which leaves them pretty vulnerable the next turn because they can't really make an offense against you, and the next turn after that they don't have any guard, or B, it just makes your opponent lose because they can't keep up with the amount of pressure that it brings plus your battle phase. So onto this card's ability. On the rearguard circle, you can activate its ability and you Soul Blast 3 grade 3 cards, and then basically your opponent chooses a total of 6 cards from his or her hand and rear guards and puts them into the drop zone, and this card gets plus 10,000. So this is really, really important because if your opponent has no cards on their board, like absolutely none, and you also have cards that retire in this deck, like Torrid Cannon, you know, and Burnout. So if you're reducing the number of cards that your opponent actively has on the board, then it's really good for you because basically you can reduce the number of cards that your opponent has on the board and then activate Nizar, and it's kind of a wrap. Like, you losing 6 cards from your hand is insane and really crippling, especially before a battle phase. So you don't really give your opponent the chance to recover, and it just becomes a really, really good card. So if your opponent has no cards on their board and you activate this card's effect, they have to discard 6 cards from their hand. And then on top of this, Nizar will get +10, which makes it harder to guard. So it changes its guard stage. So basically makes it really, really good. A great finisher card when your opponent's like high damage, and this is a really good card to keep in your pocket, so to speak, until you're ready to let loose the goose, let loose the dragon. I don't know what I was trying to say, but basically when you're ready to let your ace card fly, you can unleash the Nizar. Running into our grade 2 lineup, we have 11 grade 2s. We have 4 Toward Cannon Dragon to start with. This is one of my favorite new cards. It is very, very good and very, very efficient as far as its cost, its ability, the way that it kind of controls the board and keeps you, straight with all your card effects, especially in combination with the cross of it. The cross, always making your hand count technically 0 when your cards are referring to it. So this is another one of those cards where if your hand has 4 or less, it does an additional thing. So when you're on the cross, it always gets its full ability, basically. So activation skill, Vanguard Rearguard, once per turn. You can counterblast 1 and put a normal unit from your drop zone to the bottom of the deck. This is important along with Burnout, because you always want to have a way to get back your Overlord the Ends into your deck and stuff like that. You can also get back your Nizar. If your opponent blew up your Nizar, you can also put your Nizar back to your deck. So you can put a normal unit from your drop zone on the bottom of your deck. Choose one of your opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards, retire it, and then if your hand it's 4 or less cards, which it always will be if you're on the cross, you draw a card. So not only did you put a unit back, you just counterbossed 1. That's a lot for counterboss 1. I don't even consider putting a normal unit from drop zone on the bottom of your deck part of the cost, because that's a good thing in this deck. So basically you're counterbossing 1 to put a unit back, to retire one of your opponent's cards, you neg 1 them, and then you draw a card for yourself, so you +1 yourself. So this card's absolutely amazing in my opinion. It does a lot. Moving on to our next grade 2, we have 4 Ignaro Dragon. So what Ignaro Dragon does is it has 2 abilities. The first one is Vanguard Rearguard. When placed, look at the top 7 cards of your deck and reveal up to 1 Dragonic Overlord the Cross from among them. Put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. So like I said before when I was talking about getting to the cross early, you definitely want to get this card out in the early game so that you can get as many of the crosses in your hand as possible. Ideally, you would like to have 2 of the crosses because of how, you want to Nizar them on the second grade 3 turn. So you can just prepare for that, because basically you would ride into the cross, put the end into your soul, so that's 1 grade 3 in soul. Then when you ride the new cross, you will have 2 grade 3s in the soul. Then you use the new cross's skill to put another grade 3 in the soul, so that's 3 grade 3s, and then that is enough to pay for Nizar's costs. So basically stay on top of that, stay aware of that, and yeah, and then you guys should be straight winning games. But its second ability is on the rearguard circle. When your Vanguard attacks, if your hand has 4 or less cards, this unit gets plus 5,000 power. So of course, if you're always on the cross, this second skill will always be live. And since your Vanguard attacks 3 times, ideally, this card will get plus 15k. If you just swing with your Vanguard, swing with your Vanguard, swing with your Vanguard, and this card was on rearguard the whole time, boom, easy plus 15k, a 25k attacker by itself, very, very solid. Moving on to our last grade 2 in the deck, we have 3 Dragonic Burnout. This is another card that is like Torrid Cannon, but slightly worse. You don't draw a card for it, but you get to essentially counterboss 1 to put a card back, and then you get to choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it. Now, something that I will say about this over Torrid Cannon is that Torrid Cannon only retires grade 2 or less rear guards, while Burnout can get rid of anything. If there's anything pestering on your opponent's board, you can get rid of it. This is important because in the Messiah matchup, you can actually get rid of their little grade 4. So if they have 2 of the grade 4 on the board, you can blow up 1 to at least try to ensure that you will only have to deal with 1 the next turn when they bring it back from drop zone with Alter Ego. Or if they're on another Vanguard that's not Alter Ego, like, you can blow it up and hopefully they don't bring it back at all. So that's really great for you in a lot of matchups. Moving on, we have our grade 1s. So we actually have, looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 grade 1s. So let's get right into it. So we have 4 Flame of Hope Airmo. This is an old, standard Kagero card from the first Kagero set. It has been a staple pretty much ever since it's come out. Is way too good not to run at 4, in my opinion. But during the battle that it boosted, it gets plus 3k, so it's an 11k booster. And then also, when it's on the rearguard circle, if your opponent's rearguard is retired during your turn, then you can retire this unit, draw a card, and countercharge 1. This is also very good because it applies to when you're attacking your opponent's rearguard and your opponent lets the attack go through. That counts as a rearguard being retired, so then you get to retire Airmo and draw a card and countercharge. So really, really good, really efficient, keeps your resources up, and yeah, not much more to say besides that. So getting into our next grade 1, we have 4 Lava Flow Dragon. Lava Flow Dragon is our G unit grade 3 Searcher clone. Grade 1, they've been giving every single clan this, one of these, so you guys should be pretty used to these by now. But it has 2 Vanguard rearguard abilities. The first one is during your turn. If you have more rearguards than your opponent, dealing with which pairs very well with the whole mechanic of Kagero retiring cards. You should have more rearguards than your opponent at most times, so this unit will get plus 5,000 for that. So free 13k booster or attacker, very, very good. And then the second one, second ability is when placed from hand, look at the top 5 cards from your deck. Reveal up to 1 grade 3 card from among them, put into your hand, shuffle your deck, and if you put a card, discard a card from your hand. So basically just grade 3 Searcher. You can, in this deck, it's actually pretty good and unique that you can discard cards without worrying about, whether or not they're going to be gone forever. In other decks, sometimes when you have to make a hard choice to discard, you know that when you discard something, you're not going to get it back for the rest of the game. Well, for these, if you have, a lot of grade 3s in your hand, let's say that you have a cross and 2 the end in your hand, you can easily discard the ends, knowing that when you get to Toward Cannon Dragon and Burnout, that they can return them. So you won't lose it forever when you do that, and it's very good because of that. Next up, we have 3 Purple Gem Carbuncle. This card is really, 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 really solid in my opinion. It has definitely helped me close out a lot of the games that I've played with this deck. And it has a rearguard skill that says when your Vanguard stands, this unit gets plus 15,000 power until the end of the turn. That's it. So it can become a 20k attacker, 20k booster. 20k booster is insane because it makes things really hard for your opponent, especially as a Vanguard booster. It is actually absolutely wonky for your opponent to deal with. Then for our last grade 2 in the deck, we have 2 Flame of Scorching Heat Ghibli. So what this card does is at the end of the battle that it boosted, if your hand is 4 or less cards, put this unit into your soul, and one of your Vanguards gets plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. So we do use Force 2 mostly all the time in this deck, at least in my variant when I'm playing this deck. So I definitely wanted to add some cards that build your soul, because it's important with the whole Nizar chain that you are building soul. Also, you can return this card after it's been soul blasted out. You can return this card to the deck to reuse it, so that's why you only really need 2. And then one of your Vanguards gets plus 5,000 power when you use it, which means that it will be kind of trying to make up for the fact that you're using Force 2 and you're foregoing the power of Force 1. Then for our grade 0s, we have 1 Lizard Soldier Conroe for our draw card starter, and then you get a quick shield if you went second, essentially. And then for our triggers, we have 6 crit, 6 draw, and 4 heal. 4 Angry Horn Dragon, 1 Demonic Dragon Mage Rashashka, 1 Embodiment of Spear Tar, 4 Wavenguard Bari, which is our PG Sentinel, and then 2 Toxophyllite Dragon, and 4 Mother Orb Dragon. So with that being the deck, we're going to get right into the games here. Loading up Overlord Game 1. So it looks like Game 1, we are playing against the Susano OTT deck. We go for heads, and we do win the coin toss, so we are going first. We do check top 5 cards and get a Nizar, and we discard the Purple Gem Carbuncle. Our opponent goes for the same opening play. However, in OTT, when he gets the, when he reveals this grade 3, he gets to give 10k and a crit to his Vanguard. So his Vanguard has 2 crit, we take 2 damage. We go for Toward Cannon Dragon, we discard a card, and then we go for Ghibli. We also Toward Cannon Dragon, and we don't have to retire one of his cards to draw a card as long as we have 4 or less, which is really, really good, and that's what I did. And then I checked a crit, and I did 3 damage to him. He attacks for 15. We no guard, he checks another crit. So we're just kind of, you know, critting each other back and forth. We go for the cross here, and we're going Force 2. We put the end in Soul after Soul blasting out a Torque Cannon. We use Torque Cannon skill to put a normal unit back and draw a card, and then we play an Airmo. We attack. Ghibli goes to Soul, gives 5k to Vanguard. We attack for 31 to crit. Our opponent no guards. We check a heal. And then our opponent takes 2 damage, which are 2 crits, so that's very good for his defense, or he actually could have died in this turn if he didn't get 2 damage triggers. But we attack for our 2nd time. We get a draw trigger, give it to Vanguard, and then we attack for our 3rd time, and he blocks it. And then we attack with our rear guard, and he blocks as well. So that left him with only 1 Sentinel crit in his hand, so we possibly could have won if he didn't check any damage triggers. We could have won that turn. So our opponent goes for riding Susano and does the whole turn of plays. He attacks with Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu to the rear guard, looks at the top 3, reveals a normal unit. And then we PG his Vanguard because it has 2 crit. He does end up checking double crit, so we have to PG the rear guard, even though we didn't really want it to go that way. So we rode another the cross right now, and then we Soul Blasted out, and we got the end into our Soul. And then now we use Nizar, like I discussed in the deck portion part of the video. So now because he has 2 rear guards, if he gets rid of 2 of his rear guards, he has to get rid of 4 cards from his hand, which is very, very good. So we attack for 26 to his Vanguard. And then we restand and we attack. We only can attack twice because of no Overlord and Soul. And then we attack with our Nizar, which, as you guys can see, wiped out completely his hand and his board, and he top decked a Sapient Angel and was able to kind of make things a little bit better for himself, but not totally. So our opponent goes for Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu skill, reveals Goddess of the Sun Amaterasu, binds the top card from his deck. His Vanguard gets plus 10k to crit. He doesn't hit anything because his Amaterasu is 12. And then we basically guard with everything in our hand for a 1 to pass, and he does not get it. So that basically ensures that we win the game. Basically, we just go for 21 here. He doesn't block it. We get a crit, so that's 3 damage to him. And he ends up losing the game there. So something to be careful of that I did do there is that you guys definitely want to be careful of after you use Nizar skill, just making sure that you have enough soul to kind of still go about the game. But I mean, in that case scenario, I think after you use Nizar, your opponent is pretty crippled, so it almost doesn't even matter once you get to that point. But we start a new game against Messiah. We go for the top 5. We do get the cross, and then our opponent attacks us for 8 and then 18. We go for Ignoro Dragon, check top 7, miss it. We go for Ignoro again, check top 7, miss it. And then we attack for Vanguard 21. We heal. Our opponent also heals, and then we attack for 20 again. Our opponent G-assists because they do not have a grade 3. They only have the grade 3 orders in their hand, which is unfortunate for them. They get rid of 2 cards. They ride Alter Ego, go Forge 2 on the Vanguard circle. And then Soul Blast out with Alter Ego to get those 2 locked cards to the board, using the order card to unlock 1 card and draw a card. And then he attacks with the Lady Fencer. We take it. The Lady Fencer locks itself. He attacks with Vanguard and unlocks. We take the Vanguard. He does check a crit, so that's 3 damage to us. And we do put, you know, all the power to our Vanguard. So, unfortunately, one of his attacks could still hit when we did that. So, but we do go for the next turn. We ride the cross, and we check double draw trigger. And then we do another check, and then we do another check, and we do get another draw trigger, which definitely puts us way back into the game. And then our opponent blocks our rear guard. So then our opponent goes for the Alter Ego play of calling out. He tried to call over a grade 3 that he already had with a grade 4, but he actually can't play the grade 4 to the board from his hand because it is a grade 4 and he is grade 3. But basically, I forgot whether or not you could do that. I was pretty sure that you couldn't, but I wanted to check to make sure. So this little pause that we took is me, you know, opening a little tab and trying to research what was the actual rules and what wasn't. So I ended up coming to the conclusion that he could not do that, but he can guard with it. So that is the new rule applies to guarding pretty much only, not placing cards. And then we proceed to guard the rest of his attacks. Next turn we draw for turn. And we play Torrid Cannon. We go for Torrid Cannon skill, destroying a back row rear guard. We go for Airmo to draw and countercharge. We use the cross skill to Soul Blast out, and then put the end in. We attack for 13 to crit. We discard, and then we attack again for 43, which he didn't. I mean, he saw coming, but he couldn't really block it because after our Vanguard restood, you know, these purple gem carbuncles, like I said, they be swinging. You know what I'm saying? They be throwing up the fist. So it was really hard for our opponent to guard there, and therefore he ended up losing. He or she ended up losing. It's 2020. I can't be assuming people's genders out here. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, game 3, guys. We end up playing against D-Police. Our D-Police player starts out with a Grand Rope, checks top 5, and gets the Brad Black. We go for the attack, and he blocks, and we get a draw trigger. Our opponent goes for a Grand Rope again, but misses this time. Uses Die Brave skill to get plus 5,000 to Vanguard, which we end up taking. We do get a draw trigger, drawing a card. We go for Ignoro top 7. We whiff it. Then we go for Toward Cannon, playing it, and then Purple Gem. We do check a draw trigger on offensive, so we're able to attack even though he got a defensive trigger, and he blocks. So then he goes into Brad Black and uses the counter blast 1 to give us front row plus 10. We no guard the Vanguard, take 2 damage. Unfortunately, one of those was the cross that we needed, or wanted rather. But we do draw Nizar, so we keep that in mind for now. But we play at the end on Rearguard Circle, and then we attack for 18. Our opponent gives us a 2, and we check a heal and a crit, putting through 2 damage to put him to a total of 3 damage. He ends up unloading his whole hand upon us and attacks for 36, which we take, so we take 2 damage. He goes for the top 7, and then discards 2 to call out a card, and then we PG. He attacks for 41. We block that with 2 cards, and then we PG the last column as well. So then we ride the end again to just to give another Force 2 to the Rearguard Circle. We attack for 13, and then we attack his Vanguard, which he no guards. And then we are able to push that 2 damage through, and that ends up being the game because he does not heal. And that is the FutureFight Vanguard series for the Kagero, the cross deck from V-BT08 Silverdust Blaze. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like on the video. Comment down below letting me know your thoughts on the deck, the build, the video. Let me know what you liked about it. Let me know what you dislike about it. But be kind, be nice. I don't care if you're kind to me, but be kind to your neighbor. A lot of people are having rough times out here with COVID, post, you know, quarantine life, and so on and so forth. A lot of bad things are happening, but a lot of good things are happening too. So, you know, just try to be kind to your neighbor. You never know what they might be going through. But yeah, if you like the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't have to miss any videos going forward. Be sure to check out Let's Plays Animes, my second channel, if you're interested in anime, animation, or video games. And this has been Josh Stallworth, your host from Cardfight Empire, and I'll see you guys on the next Cardfight Empire video. Peace, guys.